Today is July 11th, 2024. My last video was posted July 2nd, 2024. And in the video, I told you that I wanted to try and get a Dollar Tree video up for July 3rd. So I could do a project with an item that I got for Independence Day for July 4th. But oddly enough, after I got that video posted for July 2nd, we had power blink off around 3 p.m. and our internet went out. And there was an outage in our area. We didn't have power for the rest of the evening, evening for July 2nd. And July 3rd, the internet was still out. We still had an outage. And then on the 4th, ours was still out. So I called our internet provider to find out what was going on, and they said that the outage was no longer in our area. Must be something wrong with our equipment. So they did the reboot and it didn't work, and then they did everything that they could remotely. Nothing worked. She told me that they were going to have to send a tech out, and thankfully they did come out July 4th. And we needed a new router and we needed a new box. And he told me that because our power went out, most likely we had a power surge and it knocked the box out. And that's what actually happened. Even though there was an outage for a day and a half, it also knocked ours out. And also in that video, I said that I would be watching people's videos, that I may not be commenting, but because of things that happened and has happened, I haven't really been watching anybody on YouTube. I haven't been able to function, basically. So no, I haven't been there for anybody right now. I'm not even there for myself. And I'm not even sure where to go from here, other than just to explain what happened. I had talked about what was going on with my husband in the last video and told y'all that he had fallen several times and that he was in a decline. And I actually had said that he was in a downhill decline, but I edited that part out because I didn't want to believe what I was actually seeing. I just said that he was in a decline, even though I knew from what I was seeing that he was rapidly declining. And there were some issues on the 2nd, and then on July 3rd, he got up that morning and he fell again. And I heard him fall. So I went to go help him up, and I managed to get him up out of the floor, and he wanted to come out on the front porch because this was about 6 o'clock, 6:30 in the morning. And I have been coming out. Our mornings have been pretty cool. So I'd been coming out to drink a cup of coffee on the porch and enjoy being outside before it got too hot. So he came out with me that morning. And he wanted to sit out here until around 9:30. While we were out here talking, he told me that the fall he had was technically the second fall, because he had fallen and he had managed to get himself up, but when he stood up, he fell again. So I actually heard the second fall. And when he wanted to go back in, I had told you that our granddaughter had came to stay with us, and I am so grateful that she was here, because when he wanted to go back in, he, being the stubborn man that he is, wanted to walk on his own, and I told him I didn't think that he could. And I asked him to either let me use the method that we had been using, which was the computer chair on the porch to the door, and the computer chair from the door to wherever he wanted to go, or to let me get the wheelchair. And he didn't want me to do either one. So I told him that I would try to help him in, and I got in front of him, and I told him that if he felt like he was getting weak, to use me and lean up against me. And the door is roughly 4 feet from where he was sitting in the computer chair. So when he got to the door, he did lose his energy, and he started to fall, and he grabbed me, and it threw me off balance, and it threw himself off balance. I ended up hitting the door frame, and he ended up hitting a couple of containers that I had out here, and thank goodness they were in front of something out here that kept him from falling. I managed to get us both back in balance, but he was still about to fall. So I leaned all the way over like I was touching my toes, and I told him to fall across me, lay across me, whatever, to keep himself from falling, because we both had already almost ended up on the cement floor. And my granddaughter was asleep on my couch, so I yelled at her and got her awake. I told her I needed the chair. She went to get the computer chair in the house, and I told her she was going to have to kind of go between me and him to come out here to get this chair that's on the porch, and to push it up against the back of his legs at his knees, and then for her to turn around and put her weight against it, because he was going to have to fall, because I literally was holding this man up to keep him from falling. So she did turn around, put her weight against it, and he literally fell back into the chair. And I got him in the house. He wanted to go to bed. So he went to bed, and my granddaughter ended up leaving that day around lunchtime, and he ended up getting up again, and he fell again. I was able to help him get up out of the floor that time, and then Thursday was, of course, the 4th of July, Independence Day for the USA. And I got up around 7 o'clock, and I noticed that our bathroom door was shut. I thought, okay, well, I waited a few minutes. He didn't come out. So I thought, well, I'm going to go ahead and go start the coffee. So I went and started the coffee. And I come back and was waiting on him to come out. And I started thinking he had been in there for an awful long time. And I realized that he was in the floor again, because the way our house is, it is an old house. So there's like a crack around the door so you can actually see movement. And I managed to get the door unlocked. But because of everything that I had been doing with him, moving him around in wheelchairs or pushing him in a computer chair and helping him get up, and just in general, helping him, I have hurt my shoulder again in the area where I had the thyroid surgery. That was hurting. The area that had swollen during or after my thyroid surgery, it was swelling again, and I was having the left shoulder pain, left arm pain. I told him that I couldn't get him up, and he needed to let me call for a lift assist for the emergency number. He wouldn't let me, and he told me that I was just trying to get rid of him. I told him he wasn't going to go to the hospital. That's not what they were coming out here for, that they were just going to get him up off the floor. I tried everything. I had some old couch cushions that I kept because my granddaughter, when her brother spends the night too, then she has to sleep on those. I make her a nice little pallet on the floor, and she actually likes doing that. He don't spend the night that often. But they're really thick cushions. He was on the floor. I told him how to get himself up onto our bedroom floor from the bathroom, because there's a little step down. So he was able to do that, but he couldn't really do anything else. He kept trying to get up and he couldn't do it. So I actually had to grab his legs and pull him to the side of the bed to help him where he could have gotten up, but he couldn't get his feet under him and his legs, and I told him to try to crawl, and he couldn't do that because he couldn't figure out how to crawl. So I ended up getting those pillows, and I put them beside his bed, and I told him to crawl up those to get back on the bed. But he didn't have the strength to even do that. He had absolutely zero strength to lift his own body weight at that point. So I told him just to lay down on the pillows and just to lay there and rest. And he was sitting on his, with his legs stretched out and on his back, laying up against those. I told him just to lay there and relax. Well, he ended up turning over on his side, and he was trying to go to sleep. And I told him, I said, you've got to get out of the floor. And by this time, a little over 2 hours had passed. And he told me the floor was cold. And he was cold. His body was cold. His temperature was dropping. I told him he was going to have to get off the floor. He finally agreed to let me call for a lift assist. And when they got here, they started assessing his condition. And they asked him who our president was, and of course he got it wrong. They asked him what month it was. He said it was still June, but we were just 4 days into July, so that's, anybody could have gotten that wrong, I guess. And so they tried to help him out, and they asked him what holiday was, and he ended up saying that it was May. Then they asked him what year it was, and he told them that it was 2020. Well, they wanted to take him to the hospital. I told them that he was on hospice. So they told me that the hospice might drop him if they take him, and they might refuse anything, any kind of assistance. So that I needed to contact them to see what they wanted to do. And I told them that I would contact them, and they said, well, just watch him and see how he does for the rest of the day. And if you need assistance in picking him up or taking him there, just let us know. Well, that was roughly 9:30 after they left. It was 9:30, 9:45. And he came outside for a little while, and then he wanted to go back in and lay back down. Well, he ended up getting up and going to the bathroom alone again. I had no idea that he had gotten up and went to the bathroom until I realized that he was not laying in the bed. I realized that he was in the bathroom, and I went to the kitchen. That's why, because I had went to the kitchen to get me some water, I guess. I thought that I saw movement, so I went to go check, and I could see his hand moving on the floor. So I asked him if he was on the floor again, and he told me he was. Oh, it happened to be about 20 minutes till 3, 15 till 3, something like that. I called our youngest to ask him where he was, because he always leaves around 3 to go to work. But he told me that they hadn't left yet, and I told him that his dad was on the floor. He told me he would come home to help get him up. So he came home and got him up, and his dad decided that he wanted to stay up for a while. So we come out on the porch, but he was in a wheelchair. So when he got ready to go back in the house, I turned on a show that he likes, because they had added a new season, and it was called Heartless. So he sat there and watched 2 episodes of Heartless. I was getting supper cooked, and we were watching the second episode of season 16 of Heartless. He got done eating before I did. And at this point, he really needed assistance in eating, but he wouldn't let me help him. And so he got to the point that he was dropping quite a bit of food. But he got finished before I did. And he told me he wanted to go back outside. And I asked him if I could finish eating before I brought him out. And he told me I could. So I did. When I come out here with him, he didn't stay out here very long. He wanted to go back in the house. When we got in the house, I asked him if he wanted to watch more Heartland or if he wanted to go to bed. And he told me that he wanted to watch bed. So I said, so you want to go to bed? And he told me, yeah. So I got him into bed, and I got him cleaned up, and I come back to go get his medicine that he needed to take for the evening night. And when I got in there, I told him that I had his medicine. He didn't respond. So I told him a little bit louder. He still didn't respond. And I called his name, and I said, hey, I've got your medicine. And he still didn't respond. So I got his shoulder, and I pulled towards me, and I realized that he was having a seizure. And I called hospice, told them that he was starting to have seizures. So a nurse ended up coming out that night. She was about an hour away, so she couldn't make it until she got done doing where she was at. And when she got here, they gave him a liquid medicine to give to him when he was having a seizure. And they had asked me when I called in if I had given it to him, and I told them no, because I wasn't quite sure how to give it. Because I've always been told that if somebody's having a seizure, you don't give them anything, especially not liquid. And it was supposed to be refrigerated. And I didn't know it when it came, because they ship the medicines to you. So I didn't know it had to be refrigerated. I didn't even notice the sticker that was on the box. So it had not been refrigerated for like 4 days, but they told me that it was fine, because apparently it's one of those that has to be refrigerated after you open it. But she explained to me how to give him the medicine if he had another one. Friday morning, he woke up. I woke up around 7, and he wanted to get up. And he didn't even have the strength to get himself off the bed, to raise up, nothing. And because I had been pulling on him and everything, I was in pain. It hurt so bad that it hurt to walk. And I told him, I said, I absolutely cannot get you out of bed today. I said, please just lay there. Well, he wanted to try to get up and go to the bathroom, because even though they had given him things to use, he didn't want to use those, because, he's a man, and he wanted to do everything on his own. But I couldn't get him up, and I told him I couldn't get him up. And he kept trying for a couple hours to get up, and finally around 10, he decided that he was going to actually use the devices that they had given him. And it didn't go well, because even though he had used a urinal before, he couldn't figure out how to use it. So he ended up making a mess. And I was in the process of getting him cleaned up, and he had another seizure, and that one was worse than the first one. And it lasted a good 4 minutes. And when he had the one on Thursday evening, he was weak, dazed, confused, sleepy, and he fell asleep right after he came out of it, and he slept for a couple of hours. But he could sort of kind of, when the nurse got here, he was sort of kind of answering her. But Friday morning when he had that seizure, the nurse was already on her way, but I didn't hear the phone ring. So I did give him the medicine that he was supposed to be given for the seizure. And after he stopped seizing, I got everything cleaned up, and I was coming outside to put something in the trash that I had out here. And the nurse was walking up on the porch, and I told her that he just had a seizure. She said, "Just now?" I said, "Yeah, just now." It was 10 after 10 when he had the seizure, and it was about 20 minutes after 10 when she got here. So she asked me how he was doing. I told her that he wasn't doing good because he wasn't responding at all. So she went in to check him, and he was extremely dazed and confused, and he wasn't responding. She checked his vitals and checked to see what his lungs sounded like and his other innards sounded like, and she told me that she didn't like what she was hearing, and that she wanted to go call his nurse practitioner. She said, "I know what I'm thinking." She said, "I'm going to see if she's on the same page with me." And I told her, I said, "I know what you're thinking too." And she said, "Well, I think we're all going to be on the same page." Because I had told her that I couldn't lift him, that I couldn't do what he needed. And she called his hospice nurse practitioner, and they decided that it was best for him to be taken to our hospice house here in our area. And she told me that she asked me if I wanted to put some pants on him, so we managed to get an undergarment on him and almost got his pants on, but because of issues, she said that we weren't gonna, that he was covered enough and it was fine, that they could put a sheet over him when they came to pick him up. And when they did come to pick him up, he was still extremely out of it, and this was 2 hours and 45 minutes later. And they ended up having to take the sheet off the bed and pick him up with that because he couldn't move. He couldn't assist them in the movement at all. So they had to take him on my sheet. And when they went to put him on the stretcher, it was a little bit lower than his bed. He thought that he was falling with the way they were moving him. So he started moving and he almost fell off the stretcher. So they ended up having to strap him down to take him. And he has been at the hospice house since July 5th. And I got up there and he was able to eat supper. I had to feed him. And a girl that I went to school with woman that I went to school with works there. So Saturday morning, she helped him eat breakfast. And I got up there and I fed him his lunch. Our youngest went with me. And he was having some issues then. He was still confused. He did know that he wasn't home, even though the room is totally different. He didn't know that he wasn't at home, even though I said something to him. At one point in time, he told me that he knew he wasn't at home to take him outside. He wasn't doing well Saturday. And Sunday, when I got up there, he had a catheter, and it had some clotting in it. And that nurse told me that she thought it was because he wasn't drinking enough. But that's not what the issue is or was, and I knew that because he was turning yellow. He had been turning yellow, so his liver wasn't doing well, which meant his kidneys wasn't doing well. And prior to that, I had told them that I thought that his pancreas was shutting down because of things that I had seen. And he ended up his breathing had changed by Sunday, especially when he's asleep. It was different. It wasn't normal breathing. Monday, when I got there in time to help him with lunch, and the nurse told me that he didn't eat breakfast, that he told him that he wasn't hungry. However, that's not normal because he always wants food. I don't know what happened, unless they just misunderstood him, because when I've been with him, he's told me no, but he meant yes. Like, he would tell me he wanted water, I'd give him a drink, and I asked him if he was done. He would tell me yeah, but then he would want another drink. So he would say the opposite of what he actually meant. And lunchtime, I was going to help him eat. They brought his food, and they wanted to move him up in the bed because he had scooted down to the point that his feet were hanging over the bottom, the foot of the bed. So they flattened his bed, and they pulled him up in the bed, and they were messing with his covers, trying to get him situated. And I saw that he was having another seizure. And this one lasted longer than the other two that he had at home. And I do not know if he has had seizures up there, because they do not have a monitor on him. So they can't see if he's having a seizure. And I do think that he's had a few more when nobody's been looking, because he has gotten more confused. And they decided that because the seizure that he had Monday, he ended up having more secretions. So they decided that they weren't going to give him anything by mouth anymore, except for some of the medicines that they're given. So he's not food. They didn't want to give him food. And they started giving him more medicine for the secretions. And when I got there Tuesday, he was heavily medicated, and there was more clotting in the tube Monday. But Tuesday, there was a lot more than there had been. I talked to the nurse, and she told me that she thought that it was because his kidneys were shutting down, because I had told her that the other nurse told me that she didn't think he was drinking enough. And I told her that I knew that wasn't what it was. It was in his liver, so of course his kidneys are going to be affected, along with his pancreas. And I told him that, before, that I thought his pancreas was now involved. And so Tuesday there was a lot more clotting, and then of course Wednesday there was a lot more than there was Tuesday. And Tuesday, after he had the seizure on Monday, they gave him medications, they gave him pain medications, and then he was just out. And they were going to give him those. And then Tuesday, when I got there, he was out. So I wasn't able to give him anything. No liquids, no nothing. I did ask for the sponges to help him with that, to keep his mouth from being so dry. And yesterday, which was Wednesday, when I got there, he was awake. They had not given him any medication for pain, and the other stuff that they were giving him apparently wasn't knocking him out like it had been. So he was awake, and his mouth was extremely dry, and to the point that you could tell that he had not been given any kind of liquid at all. And when I got there, it was 11 o'clock. They had not given him anything because his mouth was extremely dry. It's so dry that his tongue had a film on it. So yeah, I know they weren't giving him anything. And no, I'm not happy about that. So he ended up drinking almost a whole 12-ounce cup of water. And I was doing the sponge things, trying to moisten his whole mouth. And I asked him if he wanted some pudding, because he told me he wanted something. Because pudding is thick-ish, and even when you're having swallowing problems, chances are you can swallow pudding without issue. But I asked the nurse if it was okay before I went and got it, and she told me she didn't see why he couldn't have it. So I went and got him some, and he ate 2 cups of pudding. And then he was in pain, and I knew it because of the way he was acting, and I could tell that he was having some pain. And I told them, so they gave him some more medicine, and I ended up leaving because my granddaughter ended up getting an ear infection Monday, or she went swimming Sunday. So Monday she ended up having swimmer's ear, but she didn't want to go to the doctor. So Tuesday she didn't have a choice, because Monday night she cried, and she don't cry when she's in pain, and she was really, really crying. She scared me. First thing Tuesday morning, as soon as she got up, I had her at urgent care, and we went and got her eardrops, and we were in and out of urgent care and the pharmacy within an hour. and she couldn't go see her papa Wednesday because she had cried so much Monday and Tuesday that it ended up making her sick, so she was not able to go. I had to give her nausea medicine all day yesterday because she was so sick, but she was better today. She got to go see her papa today. But during all of this, his dog, my princess, she was fine on June 29th. She was herself. She was active. She was playing. She was eating. She was drinking. She was her usual feisty, funny little self. And on Sunday, June 30th, I noticed that she wasn't acting right. And my son, the kid's dad, came down and she didn't come out to bark because she was my little barker and my little biter. And she didn't come out. But I didn't realize it until later that she didn't come out. And then I started realizing that she wasn't eating, but she was still drinking. But I offered her food, me and my granddaughter. We had tried to give her bacon Sunday morning and she didn't eat it. And I thought, okay, well, she just has an upset stomach. But then after that, it didn't matter what I offered her either, even though she loved bacon. But like I said, I just thought she had an upset stomach. But I started watching and I noticed that she wasn't eating, and I tried to give her food and she wouldn't take anything that I gave her. But she was still drinking water. And then I realized, well, she got sick on Wednesday. And I noticed that she gotten sick. And I was starting to watch her more closely. She still wasn't eating. And she had gotten to where she wasn't drinking. And I was trying to make her drink, but she didn't want to drink. I just thought she wasn't feeling good because she was just laying around a lot. Then it's like the more he declined, the more she started to decline. So I finally started using one of the baby medicine things, syringes, to give her water, and I opened a can of tuna and was giving her tuna juice. And I started giving her electrolytes. So she got to where she was getting up to go out again. And then she would take the water. She didn't like the electrolyte stuff. And she didn't want the tuna juice. But I was trying to help her. And then I realized that she definitely was declining. So I was just giving her water because I know at a certain point that
trying to do things like tuna juice or electrolytes or anything can cause harm if the body's trying to shut down. I know that. So I was just giving her water. And then yesterday, after we got back and ate, I saw that she wasn't doing well. And I didn't think she was going to make it through the night. When I got up this morning, she was gone. She passed around 3 o'clock this morning, July 11th. So she was, my husband picked her out. He wanted to keep her. And the little dog that I lost in January was also his pick. Because out of that litter, I had picked her brother. And my husband had picked her. I called the boy, baby boy. She was Little Miss. And then Princess was her daughter. So he picked Little Miss and he picked Princess. And they were technically his dogs, even though they were really mine. But Princess, before she started declining, had tried to get up in his lap, and because he was in the condition that he was in, he didn't pick her up and he ignored her, and she tried to get him to love on her for several days in a row, 4 or 5, I don't know how many days, but he ignored her, and I could tell that it did something to her. Her demeanor changed. It's like the rejection from him just broke her. So I don't know if she really went in a full-on depression mode, or if it was her age, because she was 12, or she would have been, I think she was, I don't know, I have to look at her papers, but I know she would have been if she wasn't already. So I don't know if it was her age or the fact that she had other medical issues that really, I don't know what did it. All I know is my dog is gone. So I lost the dog, and ended up losing my husband. And right now, life sucks. And I just feel so lost. I feel so lost. He and I have been together for 29 years. And I took care of him. And right now, I feel like I have no purpose in life. I got up in the morning and I did stuff for him. Basically, everything was about him. And now I don't have that. And I'm not saying that he defined me, because he didn't. It's just that that's what my life was. Taking care of him. And now I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. It's like I can't function anymore. And yes, I understand this is grief. I understand that. But it doesn't change the fact that it is what it is. It doesn't change how I am feeling. And somebody told me that I wasn't the only one going through this. That's true. That is absolutely 100% true. I am not the only one going through it. But this is my experience. This is my experience. And it is what I am going through. And I am sharing it with you. And if you don't want to hear what's going on with me and my channel, my life, my whatever, then you don't have to stick around. You don't have to listen. You don't have to come to, you don't have to come to, you don't have to listen to what I have to say on the updates about what's going on with my life, my husband, my family, you can just come for the craft stuff. But if you are here and you have stuck around and you have listened to what I had to say, I thank you very much. And as I said, I feel lost. I'm getting up every day, and since he's been at a hospice, I go up there and I sit with him for hours. I can't stay with him because I have to come back home and take care of the dogs, because right now there's nobody here to take care of them like there was when he first got diagnosed and he was in the hospital. So I'm having to come home and take care of the dogs, even though I feel guilty because I have to leave him. But I can't be in two places at once. I wish I could. And most of the time he's asleep anyway. He don't even know I'm there. But I feel guilty. I will have an update if you want another update. He's not doing well. I'm not doing well. I will say that I do have a video ready to post, and I will get that one uploaded for sometime next week. And it definitely was pre-recorded. Okay, y'all. I'll catch you later. Bye.